I want to preface this by saying I am not the kind of person who scares easily. And yes, I'm aware everyone says that before telling a story of how they were scared shitless. But I need you to understand something first, because without it, what I'm about to describe is going to sound like I was overreacting. I've been doing freelance cleaning work for 12 years, end of tenancy jobs, estate clearances, the kind of properties other companies quietly pass on because they have more lucrative deals. I have cleaned houses where people have died alone and weren't found for weeks, where their flesh had liquefied into the floorboards or fused into the couch that was their deathbed. I have cleaned places that will make most people walk back to their car, vomit, and leave without a word. I don't get rattled by empty buildings, or at least I didn't used to. The listing said residential deep clean, end of tenancy, standard rate plus hazard bonus. My contract at the city council was a woman named Helen Marsh. Effectively vague in every communication, which I have since decided was not an accident. They wanted a full interior clean, all floors, with photographic documentation of each room to make sure I did the job right. And at the end of the email was a small note saying they had a buyer viewing in 10 days. 10 days, huh? A lot of work, but I need to pay that mortgage. I pulled up on CrestWood Avenue at 7:45 a.m. on a Tuesday morning in November. End of tenancy implied recent occupation, but if I were to believe the neighborhood rumors, the Billings house had not had people in it for a very long time. The building itself was roughly 3 stories, Victorian style, the kind of building that had been expensive once. I had spent the subsequent century making sure every neighbor knew how expensive it was. It had dark bricks, but at this point, the facades were crumbling. 2 upper windows broken entirely, the openings just dark, endless voids. The front door was a deep burgundy, the paint blistered and lifting, and attached to it was a porch with 2 dark timber posts flanking the path. The space beneath the roof thick with cobwebs that hadn't been disturbed in a very long time. I got my kit from the van and told myself it was just a house. That was when the front door opened without a key. Mind you, I had the key in my hand. I was reaching for the lock when the door swung inward on its own. I stood in the doorway before going in. I'm not sure how long I stood there, but it was long enough that I noticed myself doing it and made myself stop. The entrance hall was wide and dark, deep green, botanical wallpaper pulling away from every wall in long vertical strips, curling back to show dark plaster underneath. The floor was original parquet in the expensive kind of wooden block design. Yet at this point, it was covered in a thick, undisturbed layer of dust that lay there like a second floor. My first step left a clean, sharp footprint in the dust, and I remember looking at that footprint for a moment longer than I needed to. It was the most concrete evidence that I was the first person to walk through that door in a very long time. For some reason, that did not feel like a good thing. The sitting room was fully furnished. That was the first thing that felt wrong in a way I could not immediately explain. 2 armchairs facing the fireplace, a sofa against the left wall, a writing desk beside a tall bookcase still stocked with books. Everything covered in thick dust. Everything arranged in the specific, careful order that was completely inconsistent with abandonment. Usually, when people abandon houses, they do not leave their furniture arranged like that. Yet, the sitting room looked like someone had positioned every piece exactly where they wanted it and then just simply ceased to exist, as if they were Thanos snapped. The 2 armchairs were close enough that whoever sat in them would have been sitting together. I just ignored the odd feeling I was having and photographed them and moved on and tried not to think about it. The back of the house was one large room, the wall between the kitchen and what should have been the dining room knocked cleanly through at some point. Oddly enough, despite every single surface having dust on it, at the head of the table, a single white ceramic plate, completely clean, not a trace of dust on its surface in the room where everything else had it. I photographed it from 3 angles, a did not want to touch it. I was photographing the range cooker when I heard a sound from upstairs. I want to be careful here because I have told this story before and I know which part people always fixate on. I needed to understand that what I heard was not ambiguous. It was a footstep, not the house settling, not a pipe contracting. It was the specific weighted creak of a floorboard under pressure, directly above me. I remember hearing the noise, silence, and then another footstep. As suddenly as they appeared, there was no more sounds. Nothing.